So who is Jason Christy?
I'm a passionate person who does everything full blast. I can't think of anything in my life. I've been involved in business, music, classical music at an early age, fishing, and everything I seem to do, I just go all in. I don't think I know another way. I think that the DNA and the way I'm wired forces me to push the throttle and go full blast all the time.
I can tell. And when did you learn to fish?
I started fishing when I was 3 years old. My grandparents were heavily involved in ocean spray cranberries in central Wisconsin, and I had the luxury of being surrounded by thousands of acres of reservoirs to feed the cranberries. So I took it upon myself to run around the cranberry marsh, and by 4 years old I was fishing by myself around the cranberry marsh. There's a funny story that's often told at family Christmases and holidays. I fell in at about 3.5 years old, and my dad had to jump in and pull me out of the reservoir, and he lost his glasses in the process. And I always joke that there was some fish swimming around in that reservoir wearing his glasses. So it's a funny story that gets told often at the holidays.
Sounds like it. So you describe it as a passion then?
It's definitely a passion. I think it requires a certain person who is wired in such a way that getting out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning isn't a sacrifice, that going to bed at 9 o'clock at night so you can get out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning isn't a sacrifice. You give up things. Fishing competitively in tournaments is not fun fishing, I would say. It's not going out with your buddies. I think there's a misconception amongst people that tournament anglers are simply going out there and having a blast. Professional angling is essentially fishing on command. We line up on the water, a sound goes off, and we have to go and get 5 good bites until the end of the day. And I think that type of competitive person, that's what draws people like me and others into the sport of competitive angling.
Sure. What's your favorite lake?
Oh, my favorite lake is Clear Lake in California. I've fished on it quite often. I really enjoy the nooks and crannies and pockets and canals and the grass. It's just a great big fish lake. I think that year-round, sometimes you can be a little frigid this time of year in January, but year-round it is by far one of the best bass lakes in the country, and certainly my favorite. And I get asked that question a lot. I really enjoy Clear Lake. What
lessons learned might come from Clear Lake or any of the tournaments that you fished last year?
Well, I think the lesson I learned at Clear Lake, I had a tough day one at Clear Lake last year. I was on fish. I had a great pre-fish for the FLW Coast at Clear Lake in September. And on day one, my co-angler stuck a huge fish in a starting spot of mine with a camera boat on us. And the camera boat guys were egging me on, and I proceeded to catch 15 pounds of fish and lose it all at the rail. I think I was a little bit amped up and a little bit too hyper, and I lost my focus. Didn't change anything, didn't change my start spot, didn't change my bait, my hook, my rod, my reel setup. I went back out the next day in the same spot and didn't lose any fish. It's just sometimes that's fishing, but you have to ask yourself, what lesson can you be learned from that particular incident? I don't lose fish, generally speaking. I certainly have never lost 15 pounds at the rail in my life. It wasn't the fault of the net. It was simply right at the rail, and they shook me off. So it was a frustrating experience, but definitely a learning experience as well.
Talking about losing some fish at the rail, looks like you've lost some weight yourself. How's your fitness? What do you do to stay fit and trim?
Well, you know, I've lost about 23 pounds since last season. I realized going into the spring of last year, I had a really nasty bout of pneumonia followed by a sinus infection that led to vertigo. And I just didn't feel myself. I went on a diet regimen, worked with a nutritionist, a physical therapist, and I was off the boat 8 weeks last spring trying to get myself put back together. And what I realized in that process was, in order to do what we do for a living, you have to be in the top physical condition to get beat upon day after day. It's not easy holding onto a boat with 6-foot waves bashing the bow. Combine that with a hectic travel schedule. It's easy to eat junk food on the road, it really is. Pizza and truck stops become, fancy. And what that did is made me lethargic and put extra weight on my knees and my shoulder, and it just wasn't necessary. So I've knocked off about 23, 24 pounds, and I've been on a strict regimen that a nutritionist put together for me, and I feel much lighter on the boat. I feel like I'm more agile, certainly have more energy. No fisherman that I know uses an alarm clock, so we automatically rocket out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Impressive, very impressive. You talk about a little bit about your schedule. What's the plan?
This plan this year is very, very aggressive. The plan for 2018 has me fishing 3 regions of the Costa Series, the Westerns, the Centrals, and the Northerns. In addition to that, I will be fishing the Bassmaster Central Opens, of which there are 4 this year because they changed the scheduling as to how that format lays out for the Centrals. Of course, the goal with each is to qualify for the next highest series. It's a very, very aggressive schedule. It has me on the road from January through November. At one stretch, I'm gone from my home in Scottsdale from March until November 7th. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm excited to see different parts of the country. I'm excited to fish on lakes I haven't fished before. I know Lake Erie and Lake Champlain are really at the top of things I'm looking forward to experiencing for a first time. I think that when someone says, you're taking a bass boat on Lake Erie, and I say, yeah, I am. That makes people's eyes get wide open. I've done a lot of homework and a lot of studying, but there's no replacement for just time on the water.
Sure, sure. I know you've done a lot of homework and so forth, but what worries or keeps you up at night? Any worries, any concerns?
Well, you know, the season has gotten off to a rough start in the angling community overall. The death of Nick Kaler in Florida at the first FLW Costa event was a tough blow for everyone in the angling community. Although I didn't know Nick personally, I know friends that were involved in the search. I knew people from all over the country seemed drawn together. And then shortly thereafter, a fishing coach for a university in Tennessee was dead, was killed. And then someone in Texas just last week, a boat was found and the angler was not found. I think these types of incidents keep all of us up at night, and I think they should. I think safety has been overlooked. I think for a long time we were all told, well, if we wear a life vest, everything's going to be great. Well, no, it's not. And here's why.
What are some of the steps or precautions you've taken because of this or learned from all this?
Yeah, this season I'm going to be using a GPS locator beacon that's going to be attached to my belt. If I go in the water, get thrown overboard, or even have a boat issue in Lake Erie, I'm just aimlessly floating around, I can activate the beacon and search and rescue will be called immediately. I also will have my co-anglers wearing one of those as well. I'm going to carry a satellite phone this year that's hooked up as well to an emergency operating system, and also a Garmin unit that sends out text message of my GPS coordinates every 10 minutes. I think that this type of redundancy is important because not everything is going to work all the time. Maybe your life vest comes off. Maybe the Garmin has a dead battery. Maybe you can just reach for your satellite phone and hit the SOS button. I think redundancy in a safety program is important. I think the other part that's important is that as you experience different co-anglers on your boat from tournament to tournament, much like I will, I'm looking at 18 to 20 different co-anglers this year. I need to share with them a safety conversation before each tournament begins and say, here's where the flare gun is kept, here's where the satellite phone box is, here's where the ship-to-shore radio is, and familiarize the co-angler with those items. So if something happens to me, the co-angler is confident that the safety gear is on board and knows how to use it and where it is.
Sure, no. Co-angler consideration is very important these days. Indeed.
It's extremely important. At the end of the day, I'm responsible for the other souls on my boat.
Indeed, indeed. What's your off-season been like?
My off-season has been hectic. I was looking forward to a relaxing off-season, and shortly after the U.S. Open, I came home so excited. I fished 2 local, larger tournaments here in Arizona and sort of pushed the envelope through all the way until mid-November. When I got to that point, I did some boat upgrades. I decided to run with lithium batteries this year. I know that's an upgrade that I'm running with this year. I got the new Minn Kota Ultrex put on board and continued to work and tweak with some new equipment, and then focused a lot on physical therapy. I came home from the Open with a pretty significant case of biceps tendinitis in my left arm, and physical therapy was the top of the list.
What do you like to do in your downtime when you're not doing physical therapy and the other things?
In my downtime, I enjoy watching sports on television. I enjoy my Boston Red Sox very much. I enjoy cooking, although that's changed somewhat since the nutritionist stepped in and took away everything that tastes good. That's essentially what I enjoy doing, spending time with friends. The off season seems to get shorter every year. I think I finally wound it down right before Thanksgiving and then decided I'd go fish at Havasu that week. So I think I've had about 6 weeks off, but I'm ready to go. I'm really looking forward to this season.
What, any techniques or types of fishing that you're looking forward to more so than any other, or just with the new season, what that brings?
Well, I think this season, given the way my schedule sets up, it's entirely possible that I'll be bed fishing from February until June. That's going to be kind of interesting. That's a lot of bed fishing. That's more bed fishing than I've ever done in my life. But because of the way my schedule sets up, starting in Havasu and going down to Mississippi and then going over to Oklahoma, as the calendar plays out and things warm up, I could just be rolling from bed fishing to bed fishing. If that's not the case, I'm looking forward to some new techniques that I don't get to throw in the western United States as much. Certainly throwing more crankbaits, throwing the Demiki rig. I know chasing smallmouths around up north and upstate New York is certainly on my highlight list for this season.
For the different types of baits and techniques that you'll be using, what technology do you use?
The technology this season is focused primarily on the Lowrance carbons. I put them on the boat prior to the FLW Costa Series last September. So the first tournament I got to fish and pre-fish with those graphs was last fall. And I was shocked at what a difference it made in clarity and coverage, and it really enabled me to change the way I fish, certainly changed the way I pre-fish. I was able to cover a lot more water in pre-fish.
So with all the different things that we've talked about here, what would you say would be your top 5 or top 8 goals for the upcoming season?
Well, I think the primary goal going into any tournament is to win. Beyond that, being competitive, cashing a check. I think the most successful anglers are those that consistently cash checks. These tournaments are not easy to win. At this level, everyone is a really good fisherman. No one cuts corners. Everybody puts in the work. Everybody fishes from sun up to sundown in pre-fish. Everybody's got a great boat. Everybody's got great electronics. So what separates that? What separates those that win? Natural ability, a good part of the time. I'm not one that claims to have a natural God-given talent to catch fish. I prepare. My talent and my skill is in preparation. And I've always said that if I have a competitive advantage anywhere, it's in preparation. I strive to out-prepare my competitors. So that would be primary goal. Cashing checks, remaining consistent, collecting points, fishing both championships at the end of the season would be that goal to propel me into some 2019 decisions.
And the last question I had, I know you've got a lot of very aggressive travel coming up. Are you going to be traveling with anyone?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, well, some guys travel with fishing partners or co-anglers or people they linked up with for tournament circuits. I travel with my dog Floyd. Floyd's a service-trained Papillon that goes with me all across the country, from boat docks to hotel rooms to houses and everywhere in between. He's a good travel companion. As he is trained, he's low maintenance, and he enjoys the lifestyle on the road. He knows when it's time to go. When the bags start to get packed, he's ready to roll. And it's nice to share him and his service training with other people that I run into at the dock or at the lake. It's always fun to introduce him to Floyd, and I know he enjoys that as well.
Well, Jason, I'd like to thank you for answering these questions and sharing with us some of the things you've got upcoming for the 2018 season.
Sure, sure. It was a pleasure. I enjoyed meeting you, and certainly I'm sure I'll see you out on the road soon.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you.